be wise to surrender.
Yeah, probably.
Hello there, and welcome back to another episode of CUZZO-OP. I am your host for this episode, Willie. And as usual, we got
Isaiah. What's good?
So, this is a long-awaited episode. You know, it's been some time, roughly 2 months, but it's finally time to sit down and talk Jedi Survivor, Star Wars Jedi Survivor. You know, we needed the time to be able to go through the game, get our feelings straight, you know. Busy times, it causes some backup, but we're here now, 2 months after. We hope, if you're listening, you've played the game, and you got your own feelings on it. So, you know, just to start it all off, we know that I am the Star Wars fiend in terms of hosts for this podcast. We know Isaiah's more of a casual viewer, right?
I've been fiending lately, though.
You've been getting into the mix. You know, ever since our Siege of Mandalore episode, you know, I know you've been getting into Rebels. We like that.
I got the bug, bro. That's a bug.
Yeah, so Isaiah, as a casual viewer who got the bug, brief Jedi Survivor. What you think?
Right now, it's my game of the year. Straight up. Straight like that. Excellent experience. Story was, honestly, everything that a sequel should be. I felt like it was a sequel that was great. And the last sequel I played that was great was God of War Ragnarok. And I'm not saying it's on Ragnarok level, but it was a great time.
Yeah, it is also my game of the year right now. I don't know if that will change or not. I will just have to see, because we got some good games lining up towards the end of this year. But I agree with you. It was everything a sequel should be. And, you know, I might think that it doesn't need to reach God of War levels of sequel, because, you know, that's just different. We know PlayStation Studios different, but
Built different.
What this game was, I enjoyed it. And so now that we're going to move forward, we're talking spoilers. This is a spoiler episode, you know? So if you're staying, just know that's going to happen.
Yeah.
And so what we're going to do in this episode is we're going to talk about 5 essential pillars of video games that we feel like this game did well or not well. We're just going to go through these and we're going to see what happens. We're going to keep our number ratings till the end. So if you want, skip to the end, go look at the number rating, but you're going to miss out on some good conversations, you know? So the first pillar that we're going to handle today is visuals. We're going to just talk visuals because I feel like it's a simple conversation with this game. Something that you might hear as we go throughout it is performance, because this game did launch with many performance issues. Now, in my experience, I didn't experience any performance issues until the end of the game. Very, very end. And even then, it's just a glitch. I wouldn't say it's a performance issue. It's just a glitch that's keeping me from accessing the ending.
What did you play the game on in terms of your settings?
I played on performance mode.
Oh, wow. I was in performance mode the whole time, and I had issues from day one.
Yeah, it's weird. A lot of people were saying that, especially PC players, and I didn't experience any. I definitely had moments where I was like, that was weird, but they were more like transitional cutscene type buggy looking things, so it fits in with visuals very well. For gameplay wise, in terms of visual, I thought the game looked stunning.
Absolutely stunning. Every world was beautiful.
Yeah, the visual aspect of these worlds were beautiful. You know, even Cal, I mean, visually speaking, his face, for some reason in this game, it bothered me.
You think he pretty?
I think I liked his face more in Fallen Order.
Oh, okay.
And I right now, if you were to ask me why, I couldn't tell you. I put a beard on him and I put long hair on him, so I didn't have to really see parts of his face that I was like, ooh, why do I feel weird looking at this? Maybe it was the Uncanny Valley effect.
It could be, bro. I mean, I thought he looked like fire Jedi.
No, he looks great as his actor. Like, it's a graphically stunning.
Yeah, like the mocap is better in this game than it was last game, for sure.
But it made me feel weird also. Like, I'm not denying it looked just like Cameron. I just felt weird looking at it.
Okay. Yeah, that's understandable, bro. That's understandable.
But I didn't feel that way about anybody else in the game, which is also a bit...
Yeah.
Weird.
That is weird. So there must be something there, but
There's something.
I think that the character models were excellent in this game.
Yes.
Very cool to see character models return and then develop. It was just, I love how they decided to branch off certain characters. For example, you know, like seeing Grease right there on screen versus who he was when we met him at the beginning of Fallen Order. You could just tell he's in a different vibe. He's in a different season of his life since we first met him. And I like that. I like how they let the art speak.
Exactly. Cere even. Number one, they fixed a huge problem with Cere from the first game, which I would say is her eyes.
Yeah.
Her eyes looked buggy, and not like in a video game sense, but like actual buggy sense. And in this game, they fixed that, but same with her. She was definitely in a different season of life in this game. But yeah, visually speaking, game looked stunning when it, you know, for whatever reasons, you know, visual glitches coming from planet to planet. I feel like sometimes when the ship might have been landing, it would phase through rocks and stuff, but didn't happen to me when I was running around with a lightsaber, you know, that was fine.
Majority of my performance mode issues were, I would load in on a map, and when I would load in on the map, the frame rate would be fine. But as I progressed and grew that map and traveled to new areas, and the processing of that map had to happen, I started noticing a frame drop. And then I would watch a cutscene, and it would stutter into the cutscene, then do the cutscene, and then after the cutscene's done, the game had enough time to breathe. Right after that, it would be back to 60 FPS perfectly again and start all over. So after a while, I just got used to it. It is unfortunate. I wish I could have experienced it like that, but nonetheless, it's still one of my favorite experiences without that. So all the people complaining about, oh, I can't play that. I spend too much money. Shut up. Play the damn game. Or play 30 FPS. Like, a lot of these people want you to play their game in 30 FPS.
You know, while we're talking about these visuals and we're talking about you all of these things, you bring up worlds, which is the second pillar I want to tack onto, right? The worlds in this game, right? We had Kobo, Tanalorr, we had an Empire ship, we had Coruscant, we had Jeddah, you know. I'm sure there's something else there that I'm definitely forgetting, right? But I think all of these worlds, right, they offered different experiences, different visuals that I always felt like, damn, I'm happy to be going to this place because it's going to feel different from the last location that I was just at.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it was smart. It's smart because another pillar we'll talk about is gameplay, but the way that Metroidvania concept of you unlock something on one planet that requires you to have to return to another planet that you didn't have access to certain areas of until you got that ability, that kind of a concept, I love how they let the world, again, do the speaking in that regard. So if I now have the ability to dash and I couldn't dash before, the gap that I had experienced previously, I was able to access one area one way, access the other area another way, but now I can travel between it seamlessly, which allows me to be able to take certain parts of the environment into the other part of the map that I wasn't able to before. Like, the way that they're able to piece it all together, each planet had its own way of doing that, and I enjoyed that very much for this game.
Yeah, now before we jump into something that connects worlds and gameplay, a small pillar, right, that is very important in a Star Wars game more than most other games is the pillar of sound and audio, right? Because Star Wars is iconic for the way it changed sound in film, right? And so as something that came from that franchise, how do we think that this game did with that? How do we think they handled sound and audio?
I don't know if you agree with me on this, but I think, well, let's start with soundtrack. I think that the music and the score that they chose for this game, I loved it and appreciated it more than I appreciated Fallen Order selections. So to me, again, any step toward better things, you're going to get it. Good stuff. We like that. And I think it could also have been I wasn't as enmeshed in Star Wars when I played Fallen Order as I am now. But we all know certain sounds make the scene. We know certain songs in the Star Wars lore just perfectly line up with the lightsaber fight. You know what I mean? Or with the ship flying into a new planet and you're just looking at the size of the planet. This game did a great job at choosing the right score to back up these moments. One of the places that's most noticeable for me is the final scene of the game, when he's just sitting there and the music is blasting loud in our ears as the camera's watching him for hours just lament over his journey. Crazy.
I'm excited to touch that scene when we get to story as our final pillar, right? But, you know, as a lightsaber connoisseur, I would call myself, even though I know there are people way higher than me, lightsabers make different noises depending on the color of your saber. A blue lightsaber sounds different from a green one or a yellow one or a white one, and they did that very well. Even if it's the subtle hum that's a little bit louder, a little bit quieter, or a more darker tone, or the white sabers with just its like angelicness, they did that. You know, I love that. That's like, for me, sound design is there. And now in terms of your soundtrack point, this game is more emotionally focused than Jedi Fallen Order. And so when composers get in their bag, because they got to compose a scene of a character that's in their bag, they gonna go hard, bro.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I love that's a great point about the lightsaber. There's not a single part of the sound that I can say I didn't appreciate. I'm talking blasters, the way they deflected, the lines of audio that would come from droids at the right time, say something stupid like, who is this guy? Like, I love that, you know. They did a good job at letting that not always sound the same. I don't feel like I fought maybe more than twice a droid and they use a line I already heard earlier in the game. So I think when they take the time to write out these lines and put the sound design behind the game and make it robust, it helps you to stay immersed in the world. It's good stuff.
Yeah, even the voice acting, I feel like there were times in Fallen Order where I can almost hear the microphone, if that makes sense.
Interesting.
You know, I've listened to our podcast, you know, sometimes you might hear the microphone there, you know, but
yeah.
I feel like in this game, I didn't have that issue. I didn't feel like they were in a booth.
That's a cool expression, bro. I think I can hear that. I can hear the microphone on that.
Yeah. So I like that in this, right? So, but with our three topics that we've discussed before, right? We have world, we have sound, and we have visual, right? All of those things culminate to this particular pillar, right?
Word.
Gameplay. And so I'm going to just jump right in on a point that I know you and I feel very similar about. And when it comes to this gameplay, and it connects to world very well. My only gripe with this game is that the map system that they did improve on in Fallen Order was not improved on nearly enough, to the point where I almost say they should have just left it as it was, because it didn't make any difference to me.
Yeah, I feel that.
It was really pulling me out of my immersion. Like, there were times where I did want to just get lost in the world, but then when it came time to go back to whatever I was doing or find myself, hey, I got to move forward, that map was being opened a lot, especially on Kobo, bro.
Absolutely. It's the biggest 60% of the time, man. I have a hot take on this, and I'm going to try to make it brief, okay? You know, one thing I cried out for since my first gameplay, my first night of playing, was where's my mini-map? Where's my compass? I need something to stop me from having to open up the map to know which area to navigate into or how to navigate. But one thing I'm noticing is, as I am going through Breath of the Wild again in preparation for playing Tears of the Kingdom, because I never beat Breath of the Wild, is that Jedi Survivor, much like Fallen Order at the time when it came out, when it comes to the aspect of exploring, I find that a mixture of Breath of the Wild and Dark Souls is what this game tries to go for. It has that Metroidvania vibe as well, which is not original. It's just a trope now in video games. But when I say Dark Souls, I say we know the combat is very Souls-like. The concept of killing the enemy that killed you in your prior life gets you back your life, your XP, restore all of that. That's fighting enemies it's not like I'm hacking and slashing like Force Unleashed. Like I have to be very methodical about my rhythms, reading the enemy's patterns. That's all Dark Souls, all Dark Souls. But then when it comes to exploring, the way that we pin points on our binoculars in Jedi Survivor, that concept definitely is from Breath of the Wild. And one thing I know about Breath of the Wild is Breath of the Wild wants you to feel immersed in the world. It wants you to see a mountain in the distance and be like, okay, I can make it to that mountain if I just walk towards it. Jedi Survivor obviously doesn't have that open world dynamic. It has big worlds. But I think they wanted you to kind of like forget about the map and just jump in and kind of get lost to the point where you start to know the map the way the Jedi would know the map. You know, you walk by force and not by sight type dynamic, you know.
Well, with you saying that, I offer this. You've played Ghost of Tsushima, right? I haven't played Ghost of Tsushima nearly as much as I should. Being honest, I played it for an hour the day it came out, and I haven't been back to it since. Mostly because The Last of Us 2 was still fresh on my mind, and I didn't want to give Ghost of Tsushima the back end of my Last of Us high. But Ghost of Tsushima did traveling their world in such a way that I think this game should steal from.
I agree.
And it's the leaves moving in the air, point you in the right direction. You don't have to follow it, but you press the button. It's like, here are your leaves, and you go, you know? So why not say the Force? The Force is guiding you towards your path. You could just press this button and do that. I think that would be genius. And then for games like this, you know, I say maybe put a compass there, but don't have it be a need be thing, you know? Let people turn it off if they want to, you know?
Yeah.
Because for me, the binoculars, you pin that point on the map, you still got to open your map to see that shit. You know what I'm saying?
That's what I'm saying. Like, what were they trying to do? But I guess I don't know if that's, Breath of the Wild has a mini map, bro. Breath of the Wild has like a little tiny compass on the side that you can open up and put away. Or maybe that's what they need. Maybe they just need a button that you can quickly tap that just pops a compass in and then it fades away after 15 seconds. So that I still have my eye on the map while I have my eye on the compass, you know? And it reminds me of any game, man. In GTA, I know the streets of GTA by heart already. But when I first started, I was stuck on that mini map. You know what I mean? But anyways, I really do enjoy every other part of this game outside of the navigation system. The combat.
Yeah, the combat, you know, I'm glad that you seem to be so ecstatic about the combat because the day the game came out, you messaged me the night of, right? I was maybe about an hour ahead of you at that point. And you said to me, yo, I don't know if I like the combat, bro. It feels like a step down. And I said, bro, you were the first hour of the game, bro. Just give it a moment. Give it a second. And you came back to me and you said, bro, yeah, it's stunning.
It was amazing. I think I had high expectations, and the frame rate thing I was telling you about was really messing me up. I gave it some time. One update did drop. It did help. And I think that's when things started clicking for me. But speaking of combat, bro, as we dive into this, what stances did you choose?
I'm happy you dived into this, man, because I was about to ask you the same question. So there are 5 stances in the game. We all know this. My go-to, my day one, I knew that was going to be there forever, was dual lightsabers. I'm not walking into this game and not using those dual lightsabers 24/7. So, you know, for other people, they said, oh, all of these 5 are competing for my 2 spots. Nah. I had 4 stances competing for the last spot. So dual sabers was my day one. Most of my gameplay, well, let me say it like this. I tried out the cross guard for a long time, and it was great. It was great as a heavy weapon, a damage output. But I found myself resorting to the simple single blade. I loved the simplicity of it all. And I really enjoyed walking into a room full of 15 enemies and starting with the one saber. When they was blasting me, I was like, you know what? I might need a little bit of extra help. And I just take out the second one, and then I just start using it like that. It's just so fun.
My 2 stances that I played for 75% of the game, once I got the 2 stances, I never changed from them really, was the cross guard. And I'll tell you why. Cross guard for me, Kylo, right? Like,
Oh, but bro, I love Kylo. That's the reason why I tried it out for so long. But by the end of it, I was like, you know what? Kylo must be a different animal because he's swinging his shit around like he's a prequel Jedi. Although, listen, I know that sequel fans are going to talk about how, they don't fight like prequel. What I mean by that is he had swiftness with this cross guard that Cal was struggling to use for a while.
there was something about Crossguard in the High Republic type of vibe. Something in there I needed. I don't know why, bro. And I just love the way that it felt weighty. It felt dangerous to fold with, to expose yourself with a wrong jab or a wrong swing. I liked the challenge of that because then you know what they say, when you work hard on Fridays, the beer hits a little bit harder at the end of the day. And that's what it feels like. The difficulty made it so that I enjoyed the combat. Every time I killed that last guy, I was like, yeah, he's gone. Let's keep it pushing like fire. Second weapon was obviously the one in the last one, the pistol stance. For me, bro, I know this is controversial, but I actually enjoyed this stance because of what it meant for the narrative of the game, which we're going to jump into. But the concept of where the pistol came from, and one notion when he gets the pistol and he says, my master would frown at the concept of pistols. And then they tell him, but it's a new age. It's a new time. We're not where we once were. The rules have changed of the game. And for me, that hit because I remember playing the tutorial, spread out tutorial missions where you see his master training him so you can learn a new ability in Fallen Order. I remember when he says, we don't like blasters. We don't use blasters in the cutscene. So when he said it, I went, oh, I need the pistol. And bro, to have a fencing technique to a lightsaber was so smart. It's quick. Once I got my ricochet ability from the bounties, I was just ping, ping, hitting everybody with that, John. Then switching to the cross guard at the tail end of the fight and just devastating them. It was fun.
Absolutely. For me, here's my outlook on the blaster, right? I love the fencingness. It reminds me of Dooku, right? It reminded me of that. It wasn't for me. I tried it out for about a minute or two. And I said, nah, I can't do this, And that's what I appreciate about this game in terms of combat gameplay. You play how you want because you are not locked into any of these by any means necessary. They are all there for you to use whenever you want. The game allows you to have that freedom, and I appreciate that so much. In terms of my dual sabers, I love Ahsoka Tano. I do. And I love Galen Merrick. I do. They're both great. I think Cal has been my favorite dual wielder because I'm playing as him, so I feel more immersed. But it is the swiftness and precision of his moves in a real grounded way that really catches my eye so much. Like, the closest thing that I can think of is the Siege of Mandalore fight with Ahsoka.
Fair.
Our last pillar of this episode, even if we do have small topics left, the last main pillar, story, narrative, plot, all of these things. Do you want to go first in this area? Because I have something that I'm holding on to.
Yeah. No, you go first then. Drop that bomb.
So this thing that I've been holding on to for the last 2 months since doing this game is the conversation of plot versus narrative. And so for those who don't know what those mean, I'm going to tell you right now before I say my point. The plot is the skeleton, the structure of a story. What are the main events? What are the conflicts? What is the resolution? That's plot. While the narrative is how it is presented to you. How do the characters and their thoughts get them to where they are? What are their feelings in the moment? What is the story that got you from point A to point B? And so for me, hear me out on this. I liked Jedi Survivor's plot. But I liked Jedi Fallen Order's narrative more than Jedi Survivor's narrative. But the key elements of the Jedi Survivor plot I loved way more. And I think in my mind, it's because Jedi Fallen Order was a lot more small scaled and it just felt cleaner. It felt more focused, right? In this game, I felt like there was a lot of shifting around sometimes in the narrative. Sometimes I was like, but do we really have to do this right now?
I hear you on that. The reason why I love this game so much is because I think this notion of their title being so close. Fallen Order was cool, right? And I understand like Order 66. You could have just called the game Order 66 if you really wanted to. But it was just like, I get it, like the order fell, right? But it's also the concept of like what was orderly in Cal's life also fell apart and now it's chaos. And it's like, what do you do with that? So that was cool. But Survivor is so much as a theme. What it means to be a Jedi survivor in this game is insane, you know, and every character, it intersects with every single character.
Yeah, so no secret, you know, you and I, obviously, we need to discuss roughly how we're handling these episodes, right? And I'm just going to say that for the casual listener now. So I have here, when we think of Jedi survivors, 7 examples from this game of a Jedi survivor. And so I want to touch each of these characters, however brief or in-depth we want to go. I want to touch these characters, and I want to start with the 9th sister. She's the first boss in the game. She comes from the last game, you know, she's an enemy that we've seen before, but we know that these Inquisitors are fallen members of the Jedi Order also.
Precisely.
And so for me, the 9th sister, she just resembles someone caught in a vulnerable position that now has to go and do these things that she's brainwashed to do or out of fear is doing, right? Because we know that these Inquisitors work under Vader's thumb. And so what did you think about the 9th sister? Because in that scene where Cal and her come face to face, Cal reminds her of who she was. You know, he says, "This was your name." And he gives her the time to see what she's going to do. And when she clearly is like, my intent is to come at you, he says, "I'm going to set you free." So what did you think of that? You know,
that set you free part really hit for me. I'm going to set you free. I just think that if you're zooming toward, okay, what's this game going to be about? You can miss that moment and miss that whole prequel, that whole Coruscant battle and getting off that planet. The fact that all those people die, like there's so many pieces that you could miss. But I love that they had someone return from the first game to be able to launch off this notion.
The next character of this Jedi Survivor list is Cordova. Because I thought this man was dead, bro.
Yeah, me too, bro. I thought he was just a hologram.
Like, I thought he was dead. And so when he popped up, I was like, yo, right? And so if we look at the 9th sister and we say, well, she represented the almost like...
The Inquisitor, the lost soul that found home and survived through that.
Exactly. Like, Endo is the traditionalist. Yeah. Following the Jedi way that fell, right? Like, that's what I see when I see him. Like, even in his conversations, we hear my friend Qui-Gon Jinn and this and that. He was always a certain type of way with the Order, and I could never understand him. Like, he was a traditionalist, which to me is why he's destined to die.
Yeah, I know we're going to continue with these characters, and we'll get to Bode. But Bode and what he represents in the moment where he kills Cordova is so thematically on point. And here's the thing, man. Here's the thing. Every character in this game, they use the survivor theme to create a point of empathy for Cal.
And I feel like they're all valid too.
And it's so valid. That's why it's the empathy isn't corny. And that's where I would argue is different than the first game. Because he's more boyish and innocent, he finds empathy quicker as a result of, oh man, I was like gonna die on this trash planet working as a junker, and now I'm here with y'all. Like, this is crazy. Be my friend. Now he's seeing people die in a cause of action. As the game progresses, he creates an ally that stabs him in the back. Like, he's dealing with grown people issues. And yet this notion of survivor and how it validates the motives behind some of these people, woo, they just keep snapping. So I agree. Cordova's just there as a representation of what was the order that was fallen in the first game.
Absolutely. And so the next character I want to hit is Dagan, because he comes from a completely different order, right? He comes from the High Republic era of Jedi. And even then, he comes through and he was already stabbed in the back. So it almost feels like he was a Jedi that, I don't know if you would call overly ambitious, or maybe could see what so many Jedi started to see as they were getting closer to Order 66. And it's just like, he was tired of the flaws within the order, and yet he fell to the darkness. He fell to his deep desires. So what do you think about Dagan? Since I know that you were definitely feeling him a lot more than I was.
I think Dagan didn't fall to, he was pushed. And that's how I took the whole story. I can understand the opposite side of the argument, but for me, it's like the Jedi Order, much like how it failed Anakin Skywalker, it similarly failed Dagan because it made political decisions on what they thought was right or what was wrong. And obviously, Dagan is friends with, I forgot her name, but the one who created the big fortress that you go into at the top of Kodo at the end of the game. That was his connection to the Force, somebody who invited him in a subculture of the culture of the Jedi Order. And that's what happens with Ahsoka. Ahsoka has her own falling out, right? So it's like, this isn't new. This is actually a story that exists because the Jedi have failed to represent themselves well, or to meet a specific person where they need to be met. Not that those people don't have their own responsibilities, but I like that they played into this concept with Dagan. And so Dagan, when he turns evil, it's only as evil as he feels he needs to accomplish his mission based off the trauma that he had experienced. And we saw that trauma firsthand as Cal. Again, another tie back to the titular character where it's like, damn, you really been through a lot. I don't want to scrap with you as you coming at me with your shirt off, going crazy because you have no arm and you still swinging it with the Force. Oh my God, are you Rayman? Are you Rayman? What's going on?
So the next survivor that I think it's important that we touch on is Cere, a character that, in my opinion, I didn't really care for in the first game. I didn't really know if I cared for her here, but her role, in my opinion, is a Jedi trying to honor the traditions of the past while meeting the new expectations of their situation that they are currently in. Right? So she gets to be a middle point, I'm going to honor the past and follow Cordova and have Cordova follow me, but I'm also aware of my current situation and we're going to fight back. She is the great middle ground. And so her as a survivor, to me, I was feeling it in this game a lot more because she took her walk through her darkness, which is what we're going to tie into to our next survivor. But do you have anything you want to say about Cere?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I despised Cere in the first game. I just felt like she was a whack character. In this game, they made it so much more evident. That's his master. It's his surrogate master. It's his adopted master. Her connection to Cordova is important because of what you just said. Because now the tradition is the person she's learning tradition from and trying to maintain the tradition of a tradition she cut herself off from when she touched that dark mode, which they then reflected in the way combat moves. Because when Cal gets the dark mode and you got that screen that says embrace the dark side, he starts swinging similar to the way Cere was when we were playing as her, which as a moment was fire. I was so pumped, but I think the development for her is cool because she is an apostolic character. She's a character who's gone places that others may not have, or that Cal didn't think was a possibility. So her bestowing her lessons on him, and then the way he's able to carry calmly the light while still having dark in his soul, it wouldn't have happened without Cere. So her as a survivor, great character. Now we got to talk Darth Vader fight.
Darth Vader is the next survivor, right? Because he is Anakin Skywalker. He is a Jedi survivor in this game also. And so we got to talk that Vader fight, just like you just said, right? And so my point that I'm going to come out with right now is people online have seemed to dislike that entire scene because they feel like Cere fought him too easily. And to go back to Cere's journey was going to that dark mode, like you said, fighting her inner darkness, staring at it in its face, almost embracing it a few times, and then rising above it and becoming clear in her motivations and her goals and just in her head. And so when Darth Vader, who, in my opinion, his biggest ability, his most scariest ability is not his force choke or his lightsaber skills, but his fear. When his fear that he gives off is gone, when Cere does not fear him or the dark side that he walks with, that becomes a dangerous adversary, which we've seen before in Obi-Wan Kenobi.
100%.
He was getting scraped when he had fear in his heart, but the moment he gained clarity on what he was supposed to be doing, he smoked Vader.
Yeah.
And the same thing happened here. So with Vader, we need to realize he's not a god. He's just a man still.
But I can understand the gatekeeping and the frustration with it because it's only these newer interpretations of the Star Wars story and the lore that are introducing this human aspect to Darth Vader. But even if that's the case, that's okay. They built up a persona for Darth Vader where he is a menace. He's a scary menace, right? And I use that word menace on purpose, like we've talked about previously with the Emperor. Impartation, mentorship, we are a product of the people who lead us. If Cal is the great Jedi he is because Cere went through what she went through and he can wield two things because he saw it before his eyes, Darth Vader himself is also the same, has learned from other people. And I think that the fear gone just leaves two students fighting each other with lightsabers. And it just makes more sense now when I think of that and Cere beating his ass, or almost beating his ass, let's say.
Because she died, y'all. She did lose.
But what's also important is the way he walks out. It's this limp and it's silent. And the music actually gets kind of quiet in that moment too, taking it back to the sound. And it just lets you sit on the fact that she almost killed this dude. Then they transition to realizing that Cal is just watching a memory, which is the fight we just had.
Which was a great scene because you're meant to think he gets there in time and he's going to have his moment to say goodbye. But no, he's way late. She's been gone. And it was great sound-wise. Like you said, the score was dooming during that scene. But the visuals did it too. Because not a lot of people people think that she died in his arms. People still have not connected the dots that blue aura that comes around is the Force echo.
It was so cool, man. They did a great job with the way they transitioned that story because like we've been saying with each of these survivors, it connects it all back to Cal. Now, the person who stands in front of him, which is I'm believing is one of the next people, if not the next person you're going to jump into.
It is our sixth survivor,
Bode. Yo, Bode's introduction in this game, man, as a character, woo! Bro, the stuff that Star Wars gets me hot, and I'm talking hot like, ooh, like I need more of that, is this kind of stuff. The stuff where they walk a very gray line of what's right and what's wrong, which is the whole concept of war as a whole, right? Like it's Star Wars, wars in the stars. Who's right? Who's wrong? Each side fights for reasons they find correct and justified. Bode is an expression of this notion, and it's a radical expression, a very New Testament, new generation, and that's why him killing Cordova is such a big deal. This is a guy who has survived and is doing what he has to do in the time he's in, has let go of what he once knew to grab onto what he needed to be able to be where he is. Cordova's been holding on to something even in the face of his turmoil and the face of his, and so like you said, it's why these two clash and it's why he had to kill him and it's why Cordova had to die.
Yeah, exactly. You know, Bode was selfish. We know this, right? But I've always been very vocal about selfish characters and whether or not I agree with them. You know, we've had this talk back in our Last of Us episode and a selfish action that's done there. And for Bode, right, it's all about perspective. Because he's fighting for what he believes is right, you know, and he has a daughter. He's fighting for her life, you know. I'm not a father, but you are, right? So, like, what would you do for your daughter? Have you ever thought about if you come face to face with these options, what you might have to do?
Absolutely. But at the end of the day, that's also part of what's interesting and how it ties together. I know you're going to jump off into this point, but Cal fell for this. Like Bode played him, but Cal fell for this because Cal, in his naivete, his kindness, his empathy, he sometimes doesn't learn that he can't trust everyone. Hey, friend, how are you, friend? He actually calls a couple strangers friend in this game. And that kindness to him is what makes him a Jedi. But what we see him leave with, that Bode kind of put the confirmation stamp on, is this notion of like, I can't be the goody two-shoes, all light in the heart all the time and complete my journey or be who I feel I'm supposed to be on purpose and in purpose.
With your empathy point, Cal has walked that line throughout the whole game. Right from the start, as I said earlier, he gave that ninth sister that chance. When he fights the renegade boss, that he's like, you're gonna fight me with honor, Jedi, and Cal says like, okay, like, you know, we stopped.
Right.
He fights with honor. He fights with all of these things, right? And when he comes face to face with Bode, that all gets challenged. And that's what each one of these survivors do to Cal. That's why I saved him for last, because all of these people have played a role in challenging what he thinks he needs to do.
That's how you know it's a good story. And that's why I say it's great. And it pushes the narrative a little bit more into mature waters. We're now talking about stuff that requires Cal thinking outside of himself. And I very much appreciate that, man. I very much like what it does for him, man. I think when he kills Bode is when it clicked for me the most. I don't know about you.
Yeah, when he kills Bode, it's him, I think, in my opinion, answering Bode's method. He's like, this is where you brought me, and so here's all of this, right? And I think, you know, maybe for me, the entirety of the game clicked in the funeral scene that we discussed earlier. You know, because it's Cal's moment to breathe, finally. After spending all game doing everything, it's his moment to breathe and just reflect. He's got 3 dead people in front of him, all who played such crucial roles in his life, that when I watched that scene and it just had him standing there, it's really just him taking in everything. And all the movement around him is going, and he's just frozen. And it was just like, he's so deep right now that nobody could pull him out of that. And he needed that.
Yeah, man. It makes me so excited for what's to come for him. You know, and some points that I want to touch on for Cal, real quick, rapid fire, that I appreciated. I loved his relationship with Cere.
Loved it.
It was just really organic to me.
Because she's a survivor too, man. You know, she might not be a Jedi survivor, but she is a survivor of the Dathomir purge that we know General Grievous did.
And they've always had this connection as a result. It's what and allowed them to connect with each other in the first place. He gets her on his side with that connection. But they take it beyond that. Like, that's a foundational point. But there's an affirmation they find in each other as characters that I appreciate, and it makes me feel like Cal is less of a wuss. I don't know how to describe it other than that. Sometimes he comes off very like innocent, but there's again another notion of maturity that this relationship pulls out of him. That's great. That's 1. 2, BD in this game. BD.
I love BD, bro.
BD, yo, droids are an unspoken asterisk or accent mark on some of the words of Star Wars that just add a certain flair to the way that you see a scene, do a thing. Droids are
think about anything that you consider the best of Star Wars. There's a droid there. Rebels, you got my boy Chopper, you know, Luke, Anakin, you got R2-D2 or C-3PO.
Yeah.
Even the sequels have BD-8.
Yeah.
And so with BD-1, you know, we got it. Cal can't introduce himself to anybody without also mentioning, hey, I'm Cal, and this is BD.
Every time. And I notice that every single time, and I love that. That's his best friend, man. It's his best friend, legit. AI's getting scary. Maybe I'll have a BD one day.
You got a day up, bro. You got a day up, bro.
It's different. It's different, bro. It's different. BD is his brother, bro. That's not his kid. That's his man. his brother that holds him down. There's scenes in this game where he saves him. where he saves him. And I love that point, you know, that's always been a great point of droids. But love BD. And then my last rapid fire point is this. He's just a fly motherfucker this game, bro.
Nah, let's talk about it, bro, because they changed this customization option.
He's so fly. He's so fly that every single version of his outfits fit his character's writing. I don't know how to describe it other than that. Like, there are some outfits that you put on a character and you're like, oh, this just kind of seems like an Easter egg or like a fun little, nah. Everything from the combat to the clothing connects with where he is in his life and in this season of his journey. So excited for the next game, bro. So excited.
So I mean, number one, follow us on social media. I will be ensuring that pictures of both Ivy and my Cal Kestis and our lightsaber and blasters go out there so you can see how we were rocking our game, you know? But let's talk about where we think we're going. Let's end there. Where do we think that this story is going? Because people online believe that Cal Kestis is the best representation of what a Jedi is. And in my opinion, he is not. He has not reached there yet.
Nope, he's on his way.
Because he is at his, if you would say, like, his crossroads. Because we know that he has darkness in him now, but he has not fully embraced this darkness, but it is there. And so the question is, now that he is at this crossroad, does he become Darth Vader? Does he embrace this darkness? Or does he become Obi-Wan Kenobi and rise above it? And I'm glad that's not something we got an answer to here. And I hope that we don't get that answer as soon as the next game starts, especially when you take into consideration the way that these things will affect the people around him, especially his new, if you would, daughter, now that he is taking care of Bodes. And especially that Cere, and in her forced vision, whatever you wish to call it, during the funeral scene, tells him to handle the daughter, take care of her, train her.
The concept of the daughter is the point that I would pin all of what I think will come next for Cal. She is accountability of his lessons, the reality of his lessons in front of him always. He can't forget it. And so I would argue that what will happen is he will overcome and wield this darkness quicker than his master was able to. And I'm excited to see that flesh out because that means the combat going to get crazy. That means the force abilities are going to get wild. That means that we're going to probably play as his pupil. It'll be interesting the same way to see Cere's style pass on to Cal, what his pupil's style can look like in light of their teaching. Think about how many moments we've seen Cal's development be done in a flashback with him and his master. To have the actual storyline flesh out is going to be so cool to watch. I'm excited for anything, bro. I trust EA to complete this journey. Very similar to, just as we spoke about Spider-Verse last week, they've set themselves up for a third that I think it's going to be a slam dunk, in my opinion.
All that being said, Jedi Survivor, final score, Isaiah.
I give the game like a 9. It's like a solid 9.
I think for me it is also a 9, man. I think that mini map point and the immersiveness, it did do a lot, but it's a 9.
Be sure to continue to tune in to us. We do some news episodes, much like our Summer Games Fest from a couple weeks ago, where we'll tell you, hey, listen, the release date for this game has come out, or this movie is coming out. Well, here's our thoughts. We're excited to continue to jump into entertainment for you. Next week, we're going to jump into The Flash. DC's finally pushed out this 30-year in the making film, and I'm glad it's out. But thank you for joining us for another episode of CUZZO-OP, where you know you will always find 2 cousins, 1 podcast, endless entertainment. Peace.